are we witnessing a point in time where Western capitalist-based economies are going through a fundamental transformation, or are we going to look back and say, this was an interesting experiment, and we've moved on?
So you're referring to, and for the purposes of your question, you're most interested in the labor issue that Uber and other companies have unleashed, and I guess, and I'd like to, when I'm done answering that, to take a moment and answer why I think we're in a unique technological time, but. I honestly don't know. I think we could be. I think I can speak best to the labor situation in the United States. You know, we know unemployment is relatively low in the United States, and yet we have a sense both from data and anecdotally that underemployment is high. And companies like Uber have offered a new form of employment to people who are either unemployed or underemployed. And yet, you know, again, anecdotally, we have a sense that it's unsatisfactory. And as you know, I drove briefly for Uber as part of research for my book, and I can speak to this unsatisfying experience. So, you know, I think that technology has unleashed a big opportunity for piecework employment. I think would be a more historically accurate way of referring to it. Piecework employment did not get invented in 2008. So I guess I'm not prepared to make a sweeping judgment on that. The sweeping judgment that I am, and I already told you that I'm not a technologist, and yet the foundation of Uber was based on some radical technology, which was the realization that in this phone is a powerful computer that has many semiconductors, but two of them are, one is a GPS chip which tracks your location, and the other is an accelerometer which tracks how fast you're moving. And you know, this is mind-blowing for an engineer who knows about this technology. These were the kinds of things that were in guidance systems of airplanes and were used for what's the thing called that crash the airbags in cars that were, you know, big and massive and expensive, and all of a sudden they're in here and they're not expensive. And that was what the guy who thought of Uber, who was a Canadian named Garrett Camp, realized, that I can do some of these things with the technology in here. That is radical. That was transformational.
There's one more piece to it that was sort of embedded in the question too. There's a labor part, there's a technology part, and you talk about this in the book quite explicitly, which is leveraging other people's assets, not owning the assets yourself to deliver the product and service. And I'm also wondering if that's going to be a stable feature of our economies going forward, or if this is just, you know, restricted to certain parts of the economy.
Well, and so, you know, other people refer to this as an asset light model. And what I discovered in my research, or realized in my research, was that for Travis Kalanick, this was a through line of his entire career. His first company in college was a sort of proto-Napster that figured out a way where college students could use the music on each other's computers, even though they really didn't own the right to trade that music. And his second company took that technology and allowed companies to leverage the computer networks belonging to them and their partners to move files around. It's far more complicated than that. But again, they didn't need to own all those computers. And his signal contribution to Garrett Camp's idea for Uber was that Camp wanted to buy cars and employ drivers and lease a garage. And Kalanick realized you don't need to do any of those things. You can make these people your freelancers, and you don't need to own the cars. And that was a brilliant insight. So Uber to this day doesn't own cars, other than, you know, a few that they're testing for autonomous vehicles. Is it a model for the rest of the economy? I mean, somebody has to own these assets, and the owners of the assets are going to demand to get paid.
Yes.
That's some of the tension involved with Uber right now. So someone's got to get paid.